Hello class, welcome to our lesson today dealing with section 6.7. This deals with what's known as simple interest. Now as you go through your classes, you're going to deal with interest in a couple different ways. The main idea here is to figure out what interest really is and what the letters represent for the formula, and those will be helpful to you as you move on to your next classes. In order to be successful on interest questions, we need to understand how to do questions that are similar to these two in the warm-up activity. So you'll notice here that we have 3 times x times 7 equals 63. Because of the associative property, you can multiply these in whatever order you choose. So you could multiply the 3 times 7 first, and that would be 21. That becomes 21x equals 63, and then it's just a one-step equation, divide by 21 on both sides, and find x equals 3. You could also divide by 3 and then divide by 7 and do it that way. That would be another option in order to find that answer successfully. In the next one, I'm going to multiply these two numbers together before I deal with the x. So 2.5 times 4 is 10, and then divide by 10 on both sides, and I get 80.2. If you can follow along with that idea as we're going through our lesson, I think you'll have a lot of success on today's homework assignment. Okay, the formula that we're going to use is the simple interest formula. So I represents the interest. Okay, so simple interest equals PRT. P is the principal. Okay, now principal is the amount of money that you invest or have originally in whatever the situation is that we're looking at. R represents an annual interest rate, so annual means yearly. Okay, and then the annual interest rate has to be a decimal. Okay, so if it's 8%, you got to make it 0.08. If it's 10.3%, 0.103. And then T is time, and time has to be in years. That's an important distinction because you may have questions that aren't in years as you're looking at these questions. So you want to make sure that T, the time, is in years. So for most questions, it's just you have 3 of the 4 pieces and solve for the missing piece. I put $500 in savings, that's P, that's the principal, earning 3% interest, that's 0.03. Find the interest earned after 4 years, and T is 4. Now in this case, there's no solving. You just plug 500 times 0.03 times 4 in, and you get $60. When you're doing your homework and doing assessments, I need to see that setup and then the answer. Okay, we need to see the setup, okay, of what you plugged in and then your answer. The key here is the interest should add on to whatever's in your account. Okay, so the $500 plus the 60 after 4 years, you'll have $560. So you have your interest and your balance, okay, an original amount to make your final balance. Next question says you put $1,200 in the account, that's the principal. The account earns $9 interest, that's the interest, in 5 years. What is the annual interest rate? So it'd be 9 equals 1,200 times R times 5. You just plug the pieces in, and now we're going to solve for the missing piece. I take 1,200 times 5 first because I need to multiply those to get to 6,000. That's similar to the warm-up activity we just did. And then to get R by itself, I'm going to divide by 6,000. I get 0.0015. You say, man, that's really small. Well, remember, that's a decimal. You got to multiply by 100, move it over 2 spots to make the percent, 0.15%. Now, it's still really small. Any of you that have a bank account and you get a dividend or an amount at the end of every month on your account, it's probably a really small percentage. So this is much more likely to be the case in something like just a regular savings account as you're kind of setting up those pieces. Next question, bank offers 2.5% interest. That's the rate. We're going to change that to 0.025. How long will it take? I'm looking for the time. To have a principal of 1,000, so that's P, and then interest is 100. So I've got 100 equals 1,000 times the 0.025 times T. I multiply the right side in this case together, and then divide by 25 on both sides. I get T equals 4, and remember, that's 4 years. Okay, 4 years. Time is always in years in these scenarios. Next question is about borrowing. So all the questions we've looked at have been kind of investing or saving. Okay, borrowing and things like credit card debt and things like that are the same idea. It's just that you'll have to owe more money. So this says you wanted a brand new Nintendo system with every Mario game, but you borrowed $600 to pay for it right up front. Simple interest is 15%. You say, well, that's really high. Well, credit card companies charge a fairly high percentage if you don't pay that amount of time. So you got to make sure you're careful when you're borrowing money, and I hope this shows kind of why, because in the end, how long you're going to take to pay it off. So you pay off the loan in 5 years. So 5 would be time, 0.15 would be the rate, and $600 is the amount you were borrowing or the principal. I multiply all of that together, I get an interest of $450. But that's not how much you end up paying for everything. It's the $450 plus the original $600 that you had. So you're going to end up paying over $1,000, $1,050 in order to buy a $600 system. This is why typically we're not trying to get an argument of whether it's better to use a card or borrowing and all those things. But typically, if you can pay for things up front, it's probably going to save you money in the long run. Next question, amount of simple interest. I'm looking for I. Earned in an account with $500. Okay, so 500 is your principal. Rate of 3%, 0.03 for 9 months. Now, if you had to think about, I wonder what students mess up or why Mr. Rendell would put this question here. Okay, the 9 months is the issue. Okay, 9 months. The time in the formula has to be in years. So what you'll notice here is I put, instead of 9 months, I put 3/4. Now, technically that's 9/12, but I simplified it down to 3/4. Okay, if it was 7 months, you put 7 over 12. If it was 10 months, it's 10 over 12 or 5/6. And then I multiply all of that together still and I get $11.25. If you forget that it's months, there'll be a drastic difference in your answers. So you want to pay attention to that as you're looking at these questions. Okay, the next question is just something interesting that sometimes comes up as a topic from time to time if you watch the news, and it deals with the national debt. So this data is a little bit dated at this point, but it still gets the idea across. So it says in 2012, the U.S. owed $16 trillion in debt. Now, 16 trillion is a number I can't even fathom, but here it is. Okay, 16 with the 12 zeros after it. How much interest does the U.S. pay on it each year if the debt has an interest of 1%? You say, well, 1%, that's pretty good. You say, yeah, well, that's not bad. So let's check this out. The principal is $16 billion, 0.01 for the rate times 1 year. We're going to pay $160 billion just in interest. That's just to keep the number at the same every year. Because if I just pay the interest off, I'm back to right where I started. So let's use the Nintendo idea as an example. If I were to do that, okay, if I were just to pay the interest, I would consistently keep owing that $600 perpetually over and over, and I would never be paying any of it off. Okay, this says how much interest do we pay each day? Well, I divide by 365, and I get about $438 million that I'm going to be paying on that every year or every day. If I divide that, again, the number's a little bit dated, but 314 million people, each citizen or person in the United States is going to pay $1.40 on the debt each day just to keep it at bay, just to keep it at the same number. And if I multiply that by 365, that's $511 per year that we're paying on the national debt each to just keep it at bay and keep it the same. Now, obviously, that number fluctuates. This is a tough decision. I'm not trying to get into a political statement about what's better in terms of the debt. I'm just kind of showing the numbers and saying, wow, this is what's going on, so that we can recognize it and be better citizens, so that we can talk to each other about it, okay, and make informed choices when it comes to things with debt, because debt sometimes is a very big issue for a lot of people. So just something to keep in mind. Maybe you can have a conversation with someone about it, whether it be a parent or a friend. Just about debt in general, or mortgage loans or car payments. I know everyone's younger at this point that's probably watching this, but when you're looking at things of this nature, it helps to get a perspective. And so you may want to talk to someone about some of these topics. Okay, your homework. You've got 1 through 9. That's all. And then 11 through 33 is the odds. Make sure you check those answers. And then 38 through 31. On all these questions, they should go fairly quickly as long as you can get the setup. So make sure I equals PRT. Plug in the 3 things you know. Unknown variable. If you have to combine things together and then divide, do that. Otherwise, if you have to find interest, you just multiply across. Make sure you answer the question, though, so there's a difference between what the balance is and how much interest did I pay. Okay, so make sure you're paying attention to those things as well. Have a good day, everyone.